the Jazz made a trade. They traded Oni to OKC, Miye Oni to Oklahoma City, essentially to save themselves $2.4 million in luxury tax payments. I think it's a great deal. It opens up a roster spot that they'll have to fill here in the next 10 days. But the Jazz are at a critical moment in time, because one of the interesting things about the Jazz, and the reason we're talking about Rudy Gay this morning, is because Hassan Whiteside was, I think, one of the best signings of the offseason for any club, right? But he's got a concussion. He's not playing. So they're playing the small ball lineup with Rudy Gay when Rudy Gobert's on the bench, which is why Rudy Gay was brought to the Jazz, so that they could compete and play a small ball lineup. Well, the only problem is their defense gets exponentially worse with Rudy Gay playing the 5. So, Jake, my question is, has Rudy Gay been worth it for the Utah Jazz?
Yeah, I mean, I think that so far, we can't say that it's been worth it, but I also think that they haven't had a lot of reps playing that small ball lineup. So I think, the thing here is that the Jazz already as a team, when Rudy Gobert is out there, are not a great defensive team. So then you take that dynamic away and you put Rudy Gay out there and you run the small ball lineup, and they're just not yet prepared and playing good defense with the small ball lineup. So I think it's a little early to say, hey, Rudy Gay hasn't been worth it and this wasn't a great signing. But I also think that Rudy Gay, just on an individual level with his contributions, hasn't lit it up either. So I think it's kind of this fine line. I think when Rudy Gay is out there defensively, you can see that not everybody is on the same page. They're not all working together as a unit to play a solid brand of defense. And that is not all on Rudy Gay. But again, I think that, they Quinn Snyder needs to bring this second unit together. He needs to figure out, okay, how can we get everybody on the same page so that when Gobert gets his rest while Whiteside is out, we still can play decent defense? Because again, and this is something we seemingly bring up every single day, they are fortunate to be playing a little bit softer of a schedule. So you are able to mess around with small ball lineups against these bad teams, right? You're able to do these things, but still go out and win the game in the fourth when Donovan takes over. So you're in a fine place, but this has to get figured out, because I think the other side of the coin here is if you can figure out the small ball lineup, that's going to pay dividends in the postseason. If you can figure out how to play small ball now, that may give you options in your matchups later in the year. So I think it's also important they figure that out from that aspect.
Yeah, but I don't think this team is going to survive past January.
Meaning,
I think that before the NBA trade deadline, the Utah Jazz will make a roster shifting trade.
mm-hmm.
And I think that this conversation, while this roster is intact, obviously it's relevant, it's germane. But when I look at where the Jazz are now versus where I think they will be in February and March, I think this is going to be a completely different team. I think a foundational change is coming to this Utah Jazz roster. And everybody I talk to around the NBA has been saying, hey, Danny Ainge is only here because Ryan Smith, the owner of the Jazz, wants to win a championship, and he wants to win multiple championships in the next 5 years. I've heard that repeatedly. That's why Danny Ainge is here.
Yeah.
Danny Ainge isn't here to just kind of pat people on the head and say, nice job, hey, way to go. Where do I send the check for our luxury tax bill?
Yeah.
That's not why Danny Ainge is here. And if you look at the trade, the Oni trade, I mean, it should crystallize some things for you. This team has a $27 million tax bill. The Utah Jazz, who play in Salt Lake City, a small market, a lower revenue generating market, has a $27 million tax bill without a significant TV deal, without a second-tier rights deal, without a streaming deal, without really a lot of revenue streams that other teams have. The Utah Jazz are paying $27 million in luxury tax. You better be winning, and this team is not. This roster is one that, when it is together in the postseason, is an average NBA team. And that's a huge problem. So this Oni trade, I think, is just the beginning. Mm-hmm. And back to Rudy Gay, I don't think at this point we fully have the return on Rudy Gay. I don't know that we know if he's worth it or not yet. But to me, the impact that he's brought has not been significant. He has not shown up and absolutely been a contributor. And yeah, this is the guy we were looking for. And I just don't think he's made that much of an impact on this roster, Jake. And so I guess if the question truly is, has Rudy Gay been worth it? I want to say I don't know yet, but if we're answering that question today, no, I don't think his impact has been significant.
Yeah, and I would agree. I mean, I agree with everything you said there. I think, yeah, if we have to answer today, the answer is probably no. But I also think we have to say that there hasn't been enough time yet. Like, I think this team needs a shakeup in the starting five, and I also think that the reason that's so important is not just in the win-loss column, but if you think about it, if you improve your starting five, that makes everybody around that starting five better. So, if the expectation, because I think the issue with the Rudy Gay situation is everybody thought when he came in that he was going to be like 20 points a night and like he was going to come in here and really splash on the points column. And that's not what Rudy Gay is as a player at this point. Rudy Gay is a guy that, yes, has a lot of leadership skills, as one of the commenters was saying. That is a huge value to him as a guy, but also he can shoot the three. And I think what he does is he brings some stability to the floor. That's like his ideal role in the second unit. But too often you're asking him to do, once again, as we've said many times on this roster, they're asking somebody to do more than he really should be asked to do. He shouldn't be asked to play, the five consistently. He's only being asked to do that because Hassan is out. So I don't know. I just think no matter what, even if you look at the Rudy Gay situation or any other situation on this roster, we always find ourselves coming back to the same answer, which is your wing defense is really just a problem because if it's Rudy Gay, Rudy Gobert, they're playing the same defense. They're trying to funnel the pick and roll to the paint so that the five can stop it. And Rudy Gay's not doing that.
But when I look at the defense without Rudy Gobert and without Hassan Whiteside, who I think's been worth twice the price they paid for him at least, that defense has been terrible. That's why we're bringing this up. If you look at the comments Mike Conley made about defense without Rudy Gobert and Hassan Whiteside back there, Mike Conley said, quote, "It's different without having a traditional big in Hassan or Rudy Gobert back there because we base our defense solely on forcing everybody to our big. We base our defense solely on forcing everybody to our big." And so I say to myself, okay, so if we watch this Jazz team and on the perimeter, they're a turnstile, like your philosophy is to let that happen, that's a little confounding to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I don't think the philosophy is to just let everyone go by you, but I do think as a team, yeah, their philosophy is like in the pick and roll. Hey, we're going to push people into the paint to filter them to Gobert, and this is why I think we wind up coming back to, hey, it's not that Gobert has any shortcomings. They're asking too much of him as an individual player. And I think, this team would be in a much better place if they could just simply say, okay, we're going to play the best perimeter defense we can possibly play, knowing that Rudy Gobert is back there as the stopper if they were to get by us.
Yeah, I don't know. I think anytime you rely on one guy to be your defensive stalwart in basketball, I think you're in trouble. You need 4 competent defensive players on the floor. You can deal with a guy who gives you a ton of offense, but can't really move laterally or what. You could deal with a Bojan Bogdanovic, let's say, if the other 4 guys on the floor with him were stellar defensively. But you have one guy essentially that plays any kind of minutes that's really good defensively. Other than that, you struggle pretty much all over the floor. I mean, Donovan is a wanting defender. I wouldn't say he's a good defender. I think you look at the other guys on this roster. I mean, everybody wants to point to Royce O'Neal being a great on-ball defender, and I'm telling you, he's not. He is somebody that is paid to defend, and he doesn't defend all that well. So my point is, if you listen to what else Mike Conley said, he said, quote, "Everybody's kind of without Gobert and Hassan Whiteside on the floor. Everybody's kind of activated into more of a help the helper situation as opposed to trying to make it into a 2-on-2 situation with the big and the guard like we're accustomed to doing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to me, that's a little...
I mean, it's not great to hear.
That's an interesting comment.
Yeah, I mean, it's not great to hear. I mean, I think what Mike is really saying there without saying it is, hey, like, we're not playing the best defense we really want to be playing. You know, he's basically saying we're just sort of help the helper means that everybody's just kind of running around. That's what that means in basketball. Hey, we're helping the helper. Okay, that means that you're leaving your assignment to go somewhere else. And that just means that on defense in the NBA you're running around, and that's not good defense. And so I guess all of this to say that again, like I keep pointing out, we're just coming right back to the same point in the conversation of, hey, they need to make, that trade you talk about where it's like, hey, this roster shakeup trade, this big trade, they need to make a move that brings that perimeter defense. Because once that happens, this team will be a problem. Once they can play good perimeter defense, they're going to get a lot more in transition. They're going to get a lot easier looks at the rim on the other end. So that to me is like the one big thing that's holding this team back. And I'll be curious to see how they work with the $27 million tax bill, how they, what Danny Ainge does creatively to make a deal happen, being that the situation is what it is with the tax bill. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's just interesting. Jordy on Twitter is eviscerating you for saying that, their defense is porous. And, well, here, let me join you in that. The Jazz are not a good defensive team. And I think it's interesting. There's a lot of Jazz fans who have trouble digesting this.
And by the way, we're not the only ones saying that the Jazz are not a great defensive team. Like, this is not a secret. Like, this isn't like, we're breaking news here. I mean, this is not like, this is well known.
The Jazz, the problem is statistically the Jazz rank well defensively. And we live in a very statistically driven sports fandom.
Listen, everybody in the NBA wants to say, oh, it's stats. They're a great defensive team on the stat sheet. Right. But what did that do for you in the playoffs when you're playing a 7-game series and matchups win you games? That's what we're talking about here. Like, I respect the fact that, yes, statistically, sure, they may rank well defensively. Great. They may have good defensive numbers. That might be true. I'm not disagreeing with you on that. But what I am disagreeing on is, hey, when they get to the second round of the postseason and they're playing the Clippers or the Lakers or the Warriors or whatever team that they wind up running into, that team doesn't care about your stats on the stat sheet. That team is going to exploit your inability to move laterally on the perimeter. That team is going to find a way to get Steph open on the wing to seal the game with that three. That's what I'm talking about. So I'm not trying to be negative or say that, hey, they don't do a good job statistically defensively. What I'm saying is that, hey, you have a $27 million tax bill. You are not good enough on your perimeter defense in the postseason in a 7-game series to win a championship. And that's what has to be addressed. That's what I'm specifically saying.
Yeah, and I think that you have to – the other thing I think you have to do is you have to get a little more flexible on offense because that's going to help you on defense, as well as Rudy Gobert does rebounding. And this is a pretty good rebounding team. But as well as Rudy does rebounding, when you miss a lot of threes, you tend to give up a lot of points. And I think we see that when the Jazz struggle. I just don't know why it's taboo to say that the Jazz struggle defensively, because they're not a great defensive team. Mm-hmm. They are not. So and the thing I don't want to do is get into, well, this guy and that guy, and I'm not interested in Jeremy Grant conversations. You've got to find the right guys to put 10 guys on the floor on a nightly basis.
Yeah.
And right now, Quinn is playing 7-8 guys a night, and it's a problem. And again, I do think, and I think it was the Nye guy yesterday who mentioned it, but yeah, I have slightly changed my opinion on Quinn Snyder. I am still to this day shocked that he is not playing Jared Butler more. I'm really surprised by that. Even in limited minutes, even any exposure you can get him, But I don't understand that. Why did you pick up Udoka Azubuike's, option?
Yeah.
Like, you're just not. I mean, Trent Forrest is getting some minutes now, but where's Elijah Hughes? Like, you're not playing any of your young guys, and your old guys aren't getting better. The 8 guys you play are who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Jordan Clarkson's not going to get better. Joe Ingles is not going to get better. Boyan, like, the only guy who has big upside on this team is Donovan Mitchell. That's it. I don't see Rudy Gobert improving dramatically. None of that. I mean, you have one guy that's going to progress, and I think it's Donovan Mitchell. And I think he's probably near his top end. He will refine and evolve. But other than that, I mean, is there anybody who thinks Mike Conley's going to evolve into something he's not already?
No. He's
not. I mean, is Royce O'Neal getting better than he is now? He's not. Right? I mean, you and Jazz fans tend to be very emotional about their players, right? Take the emotion out of it. Do you believe that you can compete with I'm not even talking about anybody see what Devin Booker and the Suns did last night.
Mm-hmm.
Devin Booker is having a career year, right? Does anybody think that this Jazz team can beat the Suns in a 7-game series? I think that's the team you would want to play. I still am not convinced the Jazz would beat the Suns in 7 games.
Yeah.
I'm not I know right now I am confident they cannot beat Golden State. So let's look at some of the second-tier teams. Is there anybody who believes, take your emotion and your fandom out of it, is there anybody believe that this Jazz team can beat the Nets? Kyrie back tonight for the Brooklyn Nets.
Mm-hmm.
The Brooklyn Nets are with Kyrie, KD, and Harden, the Brooklyn Nets are a better team.
Yeah.
They are. Because you don't have an answer, let alone for one of those players, yet all 3 of them.
Yeah.
Right? So I look at the Chicago Bulls. I look at some point, Ben Simmons isn't going to be a Sixer anymore.
Yeah, at some point he'll be back in the league.
So let's figure out what the Sixers turn into.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the Clippers. Are you better than the Clippers with Kawhi and Paul George?
Well, I think the question is, are you better than them right now? Because we don't know what Kawhi's status is. We don't know,
he's gonna be back.
I mean, he'll be back, but what does he look like as a player? Is he 100%? Is he you know what I mean? We don't know the answers to these questions, and so I think can the Jazz beat the Clippers in their current form? With,
yes.
With Paul George. And
Paul's not playing though. Paul's not playing.
But he'll be back.
He's got this elbow injury.
He'll be back.
I don't know. I'm more looking at middle table down. I don't think you could beat the Memphis Grizzlies in a 7-game series.
I think that'd be really close.
I don't think that. I think Memphis has a real good shot to win that. This Damian Lillard abdominal injury that looks like it's going to keep him out for the year now. He's thinking about having surgery on it. I mean, Portland's a non-factor, but I look at all of these teams. Dallas is going to get better. Denver's certainly going to get better if they ever get healthy.
Well, you're seeing Denver on Wednesday.
Yeah, I mean, listen. I think Denver's got an offense problem, and when you're without 2 of your best players,
yeah,
I mean that's going to be an issue.
Yeah.
So right now, the Jazz are better than Denver. I'm not ready to say the Jazz are better than the Memphis Grizzlies right now. John Morant's playing out of his absolute mind. Bane is a much better player this year than he was last year. I just look at that Memphis team. When you're scoring 110 points and you're only giving up 107.7 points, you're going to win a lot of games. You are, and they can play. You want to go to the rack, they can go to the rack. You want to run, they can run. You want to shoot threes, they can shoot threes. I think Memphis is a
they're better,
scary team.
Yeah, they're better for sure, no doubt.
Yeah. But then I look out east. And I don't know what the Milwaukee Bucks are going to be. I mean, that's a team that's in flux constantly with injuries. Jimmy Butler went out for the Heat last night. The Sixers, obviously, with Joel being, a game day decision every day, it seems like. Ben Simmons not there. The Cavaliers are not better than the Jazz.
No.
But I think the Chicago Bulls are better than the Jazz, especially when they're 100%.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting matchup. I think, and again, I think on a surface level, as Jazz fans, you're like, man, some of these, I wouldn't be surprised if we were getting comments about the Grizzlies take, But if you watch the Grizzlies and you really pay attention to how they play it, I mean, it would be a tight matchup for sure. I think, when you look at, like, if you just look at it, and this is a tough thing with the Jazz, and this is why I think Jazz fans get a little frustrated. When Jazz fans look at the win-loss column and the stat sheet and, like, in the paper, everything says that the Jazz are an elite team. But then when you watch them play these teams, the matchups really dictate the game. And that's what's really tough about this team. And that's why I always say, like, the Jazz are in a really tough spot. They're in one of the worst spots in sports that you can be. You're a really good team that gets to the postseason seemingly every year, but you just don't have enough to win that matchup when you need to win it. And that's really tough. And so teams like Memphis, who are getting better, I agree, Memphis is definitely better. Memphis would give you a hell of a fight in a 7-game series. I can't say definitively that the Jazz would win that series, but I think it would be a really tight series, so they're better. You look at this Bulls team right now is playing a hell of a brand of basketball. They're fast. They've got great mid-range. They can shoot the three. Like, they're doing good things.
Look at this Lakers New Orleans trade rumor.
Mm-hmm.
That's got Josh Hart and Jonas Valanciunas going to the Lakers for Russell Westbrook. I mean, the Lakers are going to make a big trade.
Yeah.
And I think most people believe it'll be Russ. I mean, if you get Josh Hart back and Valanciunas back, that's a pretty good upgrade.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the Lakers are going to be better. The Warriors are already elite. My point in all of this is you've got to find a way to remake this Jazz roster. You do. I mean, it's this Oni trade is just the beginning.
Yeah.
Greg Hawkins, good morning to you. The blind swordsman says he's been worth it because of the vet minimum, but defensively he's been kind of doo-doo.
Yeah.
Yeah. The eBay the Sofa Surfer says, I like Ingles, but Ainge is trading him. He should trade him and Gay and trade for Miles Turner, who can play alongside Gobert. Well, the problem is they hate each other. That much has been established. And I don't think Miles Turner, I don't think he's what you need here.
Well, and you're not going to have 3 bigs on one roster. That's not.
Yeah, and you don't need another 3-point shooter. You need a guy to get to the basket. Like I see Mr. E saying Jeremy Grant at all costs or we'll have the same mediocre results. Jeremy Grant doesn't fix what's wrong with you. Jeremy Grant, 1, is injury prone. 2, he loves to shoot the 3. And 3, I mean, I'm not willing to acquire another guy that you can't count on in the postseason.
Yeah.
I'm just not willing to do that. And he makes I think he makes 25 a year or something stupid like that. Like,
he gets paid.
I mean, he makes a lot of money. And I just don't know. And again, this is just me. I don't understand the love affair with the 3 on this team when you already have 57 guys on this roster that only shoot the 3.
Yeah, I mean, the truth is the roster needs more balance. You need more, like, yes, you always want, on NBA teams, you want probably 2 to 3 guys that can reliably hit the 3 for you, but you also need guys that can get to the cup and kick and do all that. And right now, I think, and even with Donovan, like, Donovan gets 3 happy sometimes. We've all seen that, and that's going to be part of what, he changes to improve his game. But I just think that, too often this roster, it does turn into Donovan and everybody else. And the problem is that everybody else can't get by anybody offensively, and that's the tough part. So even when you are making the 3, like, you can't, get by once they start trying to take that away. And that's what you're really trying to do in basketball. Hey, let's make some 3s so that they come to us and then we can go buy them. That's part of what you're trying to do, and they can't.
Yeah, and if I'm getting a guy on Detroit, give me Diallo right now, who's absolutely crushing. Jeremy Grant's got $40 million guaranteed left on that deal.
They just can't do that.
I'm just
They're not doing that deal.
I'm not interested in that. I don't know, man. I think the Jazz, if the Jazz are smart, they will clear cap this year, and they will remake this roster next year. Because I don't think you're winning a championship through trade, not right now. And it is I I still maintain you need to completely remake this roster as soon as you can.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's probably not a real popular view.
Mm-hmm.
But it's what I said last summer. I still think you should bite the bullet this year and do the best that you can do, and really put yourself in a position to compete financially in the next 5 years. And I just don't think that they have done that. And I look at their cap, and I look at, I don't know, man. I look at who I would trade for, and I'm trying to find numbers. But if you're asking me right now what this team needs, I think the Utah Jazz need somebody to attack the basket and play defense.
Mm-hmm.
They can shoot 53s a game right now. The question is, if you trade a guy like a Bojan Bogdanovic, what do you need in return for that? What do you need to replace? You're gonna need a 20-point-a-night guy.
Yeah, the guy you're looking for is like a Mikal Bridges from Phoenix. Not that you're ever going to get him, but that's the kind of player that you're looking for. You're looking for the secondary guy that is really strong in his role, that can play great defense and shoot the three, and ideally get to the basket. But,
Yeah, I don't know that they have a lot of.
Yeah, they don't have a lot of options, and that's what we keep saying. Like, when you have that luxury tax bill, like, that is what it is.
Yeah.
So
I mean, an ideal guy for me is a guy like a Kevin Love. He is having a renaissance of a season. He is a short-term option for you. I mean, I want a guy in return who's going to give me production and cap space.
Yeah.
And those guys are awfully hard to find. I totally understand that. But, man, I'm telling you, and I know everybody's going to say, oh, he's broken. I'm not trying to win a championship this year. I'm not. And I look at the way that the Jazz are built, and I don't think there's anything that you can do right now to win a championship. And I just.
And that's just what it is.
It is what it. I want that. Kevin Love, I bring up Kevin Love not specifically for him, but I want a guy that can be a hybrid player. I want a guy who can give me big, but can shoot the three. I want a guy who can play down low. I want a guy who can be you need a true power forward on this team.
Yeah.
And it just isn't. The problem when I look at guys like Jeremy Grant is he's injured, and to me, he's not versatile. I look at somebody like a Miles Turner. He's not versatile.
Mm-hmm.
He's not a guy you can hand the ball to. He shoots threes and he plays defense, and he does it well. He's a great shot blocker.
Yeah.
You already have that.
Yeah.
You already have that.
Yeah.
So give me somebody who gives you something you don't have.
Yeah.
And I just think that's that model of player, Kevin Love, but not Kevin Love.
Yeah.
Is a kind of.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, you want that kind of guy.
And that's really hard to come by in this league.
Yeah.
But when I look around the league and I look at guys like Brandon Ingram, who everybody now is talking about being traded,
Mm-hmm.
I'd love a Brandon Ingram type player on this team.
Yeah.
A guy that can get to the basket, a guy that's long and defends.
Yeah, his game is predicated on the mid-range and getting to the basket.
I would love a player like that on this roster who you can count on, who you can absolutely count on. I'd love a guy like that on this roster. I would love a Josh Hart on this roster.
Yeah.
The frustrating thing for me is you look around this league and you hear the names that the Jazz are linked to, it's like, what do I want with Robert Covington?
Nothing.
Like, I don't want anything with Justin Holiday, or I just don't want that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
I do.
If you're going to make a deal, it's got to create cap flexibility, and it's got to be a guy that can play the wing. That, to me, that's it. All right, let me get a couple more of your comments. The Nye Guy says, I think Gay is an upgrade over the minivan for sure. I like Grant, but he's Mr. Glass, and he's hurt constantly.
Yeah.
You're not. If you only signed Rudy Gay to upgrade George Niang, that was probably a mistake to sign him.
Yeah.
I mean, to me anyway. eBay says Jazz need to get with the Pacers before other teams do. The Pacers are having a fire sale, supposedly. But what do you want from the Pacers? What do you want from the Pacers? Like, do you have, and I don't know what Sabonis is making off the top of my head.
Too much.
Is Sabonis a guy that you feel like fits into what you do? Is Sabonis a guy that...
Well, no, I would want to go and get Malcolm Brogdon. That's what I'd want, from the Pacers. I think that would be, but he's making money, a lot of money.
Yeah,
so, you're not going to be able to get him. So that's why I say, like, I don't know And again, I'm not trying to be difficult about it, but that's the problem with the luxury tax thing. I mean, it just puts you in this position where you have to make it perfectly match.
Yeah, Domantas Sabonis is making $20 million a year. He's got $58 million guaranteed. Malcolm Brogdon's at $22 million a year with $90 million guaranteed left.
Yeah.
Again, I will maintain the two guys on that Pacer roster you want is Karis LeVert, who's making 17 and a half. And what's Torrey Craig is like, to me, Torrey Craig's a great bench guy for the Jazz. He shoots the three and he's a tenacious defender who gets fouled a lot and goes to the line. Like that, why you're not playing Eric Paschall at all doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
It makes absolutely no sense to me. You know, like I look at least with the other teams in the West, like I look at the Lakers again. And I real quick, I'm going to talk about this Sacramento Laker thing last night. But the Lakers play all of their guys.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't understand this thing where you're playing 7-8 guys a night.
Yeah, it's silly. It
like,
doesn't
what
make
is
a
the
lot
point
of
of
sense.
that?
Yeah.
You did see the Lakers Kings thing last night. So the Kings are down 5 to the Lakers with 24 seconds left in the game. The Lakers miss a free throw. All of the Lakers run down the floor to play defense. De'Aaron Fox goes to rebound the ball, but intentionally doesn't touch it so that the clock won't start. The clock starts anyways. De'Aaron Fox points it out. The officials stop the game. And they essentially, what they did is they got together, talked about it, and called a jump ball, which by the letter of the law in the NBA is the correct call. If when the clock stops and the official blows the ball dead, blows his whistle, if nobody has possession of the ball, it's a jump ball.
Uh-huh.
Oh my God, the Kings got screwed on that.
Yeah.
Absolutely got screwed on that.
Yes.
It is, and it's the right call. It's just a horrendous situation. It is a terrible rule. A terrible rule.
Yeah, I mean, I think, the issue is that, the Lakers clock operator makes a mistake, and then the Kings have to pay for that, which is essentially what, Alvin Gentry said. So I just, that's the kind of thing in the NBA where I'm like, okay, that's, you can't, you got to be better than that as an official. You got to be able to say, okay, yeah, this was clearly a mistake. This should be the Kings' ball. And the problem is, if you're the Kings, that game isn't even close to over. You still have an opportunity there because you're down 5 with time left. So, I just think it's that was just so poorly handled by the officiating crew.
It was so frustrating. If you haven't seen the video, Alvin Gentry lost his mind.
And it was funny.
And you can hear the words he said. It's hysterical. It is. All right, let's see. Tanner Plummer says Brandon Ingram would be a fit right in with this team. He also says, you guys may have already talked about it, but do you think Miles Turner would fit? I don't. Kelsey Hammer says, Hamer? 1M. Hamer is Hamer, I think. In Utah, people keep thinking this is 2K22. Exactly.
Yeah.
And we just need to get the best team rating. In real life, you have to get the positions you need to support the game plan. An example is LeBron James Cavs. Yeah, you have to build a team around Donovan Mitchell that supports what Donovan Mitchell does.
Yes.
In my opinion, because you're going to lose him if you don't. eBay, the Sofa Surfer says, Torrey Craig is a great bench guy for sure. Totally agree, yes. The Nye guy says, Paschall is Crowder Jr., but I'd love to have Jay Crowder on this team.
But why won't you play him?
Why won't you play him? Fox is supposedly being moved. Curious what gets him. He's a super fast, super young guard. Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. Why with the Russians today? Why with the Russians? I don't understand it. Ethan says, go get Obi Toppin. Yeah, the Knicks will trade him. Hey, Monty, say it. Terry Rozier would fit perfect with the Jazz. Oh, my God. Terry Rozier doesn't pass ever.
Scary Terry.
Scary Terry does not pass.
No, he does not.
I mean, you already have that in Jordan Clarkson.
Yes, you do.
And I hate to. Oh, this is going to piss people off. Tell me you wouldn't love to have Gordon Hayward back. That skill set on this roster. Come on. If you were
a good question.
Oh, it is a good question. If you were upgrading Royce O'Neal with Gordon Hayward, come on.
I mean, yeah, that's a great upgrade.
I know your groin hurts just to say that out loud.
Mm-hmm.
Your groin probably tightened when I said that.
No, my legs started to hurt.
Okay. That was not nice. That was not nice. Joshua Erickson says Harrison Barnes. Question is how you get him. Yeah, Harrison Barnes would be amazing.
Yeah.
We've talked about him repeatedly. Kelsey Hamer says, what player do you see the Jazz getting, Monty? Be honest. Right now, today, I don't see them getting any significant contributor. That's something you're going to have to do in the offseason. And I think if Danny Ainge is Danny Ainge, he is probably sold Ryan Smith on the long term, which is exactly what he should do.
Yeah.
So if I'm the Utah Jazz, I'm gonna do the best that I can do this year. And I know that Ryan Smith said we're never gonna trade Joe Ingles.
It's never gonna happen.
I love Joe. You're gonna trade Joe Ingles. You should trade Royce O'Neal. And I think the hard part is selling the Jazz fan base on, like, if you trade Bojan Bogdanovic for your mom's old panties, that's going to piss a bunch of Jazz fans off.
Pack your shit. Let's go.
Yeah, like, you're out, right? Like, but if I'm the Jazz, I'm doing that.
Yeah.
I'm doing that. And you know, for better or for worse, you're going to be Donovan, Rudy Gobert, and Mike Conley.
Mm-hmm.
And
it should be everybody else.
I would remake everybody below that. Because you're married to Rudy Gobert whether you want to be or not.
Yeah.
So bring in pieces that support Donovan and build around those three so that you can compete for a championship next year. Because I'm not saying there's no chance, but I don't see any way that this team wins a championship this year.
Yeah.
I don't. I
agree.
I just don't. I don't know how you do that. You know, and you have an opportunity with Joe Ingles on an expiring deal, on a declining performance. You know, you look at the Oni trade to OKC. That's exactly the deal you need. They're under the salary tax floor.
Yeah, and this isn't the first time the Jazz and OKC have had dealings. You know?
No, Derek Favors is another example of that. But you've got to find somebody to help you.
Yeah.
And giving up a second-round pick, I will just say, you haven't done much with your first-round picks. So the Jazz giving up second-round picks to me means absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing. And I love Joe Ingles, and I love what he brings, and I love the chemistry, and
it's all good, but it's time to move on.
I love Bojan, but like somebody was getting on me yesterday about the fact that I said that Bojan Bogdanovic is not a 20-point-a-night guy. This year, consistently, he has not been a 20-point-a-night guy. Like this year right now, reloading ads. Bojan Bogdanovic last year averaged 17 points a game. This year he's averaged 17.8.
Bojan Bogdanovic.
You need more from him. And he's actually shooting the ball really well. I want more from Bojan Bogdanovic.
Yeah.
But he's never going to command the ball.
Yeah.
That's not that guy. He's never going to command the ball. Even though he's shooting 43% for three, that's got real value. Bojan Bogdanovic has real value, right? That's a guy that you can send to a contender and get something in return.
Trade chip for sure.
I would trade Bojan Bogdanovic, and I would do it willingly and quickly if I could.
Yeah.
You know, but as far as players that I think the Jazz are going to get back and name, I don't know who that is.
Yeah, I think the answer to that question right now is, you know, the player and the names really are dependent on the money. You know, I mean that's just where the team is at. So I think right now, yeah, I agree. Danny Ainge has sold Ryan Smith on, you know, the 5-year picture, and I think that this year you're either going to go one of two ways. I mean, Danny Ainge could theoretically get super aggressive and build a championship contender this year, and like, you know, but that would require like blowing the roster up and making like serious like franchise altering moves. But I think the challenge with that is the luxury tax bill. And that's why I think it won't happen this year. I agree with you. I think it'll happen over the summer, and hopefully you come back next year and you have a legit roster that you can actually go and chase something. And
I'd love to see Torrey Craig be the guy that the Jazz go and get. I mean, I'd love to, if you're going to make a deal, I'm telling you, the only two players on that roster you want are Karis LeVert and Torrey Craig.
Yeah.
Because they both fill needs, and Torrey Craig, watching him in Phoenix every game last year, and even before that with Milwaukee, like the guy just, the guy does what you need him to do.
Plenty of postseason experience.
You know, like, yeah, absolutely. I mean, he is that 3-and-D guy who can also get to the line. You know, like he is that guy to me matters. I think you can't have enough guys like that on your roster. So that's somebody that I would be looking at. But you know what? I mean, there's other guys that I think, I mean, you could. I mean, where are you at with Jordan Clarkson? I mean, is Jordan Clarkson
He's
a
a
guy
trade
where
chip.
is he a guy that you are?
Jordan Clarkson is a trade asset to me. I'm not saying that I want to trade him, but what I am saying is that somebody on the other end of the phone is going to ask about Jordan Clarkson, and you need to know the answer to that question. And my answer is yes, he can be included in a deal, but obviously the price has to be right. You know, like you're going to have to pay for him. You know, so I think. Yeah, guys like Bogey, Clarkson.
I wonder what Clarkson's value would be in a trade.
Oh, I think his value would be high. Yeah, I mean, he's a sixth man of the year. I mean, he's got value for sure.
I don't know. I think you don't play him late in games.
No.
I mean, I don't know. You know what? We get into this is why I hate talking about trades and blowing rosters up and you wind up off in the weeds.
Yeah.
It is.
It's a black hole because you don't know. Without being able to see the dollar for dollar stat sheet, you know, in front of you, it's hard to say what you can go and get.
Yeah, I just don't see how. But like Jesus destroys Satan's lies. I don't think that's on your birth certificate.
God bless.
Jesus says they will trade Joe and picks for Jeremy Grant or Harrison Barnes. How?
And what picks?
And what money, in what universe does that work? Because if you look at, isn't Joe Ingles making $13 million? And we just talked about Jeremy Grant's contract. I mean, the guy's making 20, and he's got 2 years left on that deal. The Jazz are way over the tax limit, which means the money's got to be almost perfect.
Yeah.
Joe Ingles is making $13 million this season. I mean, that deal doesn't work nearly. You would have to find a way. You'd have to include a Royce O'Neal or I mean, you would have to find a way to put that'd have to be a third team.
Yeah,
because I don't see that happening. I mean, and if you look at, you know, and people love them some Lou Dort. Why would the Jazz want Lou Dort?
Because he can play great defense, man.
Yeah, but who is he going to play instead of?
Royce O'Neal. I'd rather have Lou Dort than Royce O'Neal.
Well, yeah. I mean, of course.
But you're at. Well, what do you mean?
I don't see how I don't know why you would do that if you're is Lou Dort a big update or a big upgrade? I mean, he's making nothing. Come on, geez Louise. He's making $1.6 million.
Yeah, that's why you like him.
You know, like I mean, I don't know, man. Annie's hurt. Like I don't know. I'm not a Lou Dort guy. I'm not. I think that I like him. He has gotten much better. There's no doubt about that. I'm just not so sure that I'm down with. Does he make you a better team?
Yeah, he does.
If you give up a secondary player to get Lugens Dort.
Yes. He makes you a better team, dude. Yes.
How much does he play in instead of who?
Okay, again, he would play. He's a better defender than, let's say, any of your second tier players right now. He's a better defender than Joe. He's a better defender than, you know, Rudy Gay or, you know, any of the guys you're bringing off the bench, dude. He's better than those guys defensively. You know?
Yeah.
Like he is.
Yeah. What is he? 6'2"? Let's see. I don't know. I just, that doesn't feel like a championship trade to me. That doesn't make you better in the long term. That's a now fix. And I don't know, like, I mean, he's owed no money. You know, okay, I'm not going to write that off. I need to think about that, the Lou Dort thing, because he's not going to cost much to get him.
Yeah.
But why, you know, like, yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting. I don't see that Joe Ingles brings you a huge chip in return.
No.
Because
the chips, the guys that bring you good return would be Jordan Clarkson and Bogdanovich.
Yeah, it'll be. I mean, like I look at their guards. I mean, what are you doing with Jared Butler?
He's rotting on the bench. That's what you're doing with him.
But is that a guy you're willing to let go of? Like, I mean,
I would hope not, but
yeah, we'll see. I think it'll be interesting to see exactly how the Jazz go about this.
Yeah.
All right, real quick, top 5, bottom 5 before then we have to get into ESPN and the folks. Best team in the NBA right now.
It's the Warriors. I mean, they are the best team in the league right now. But there's this grouping of teams at the top of the league, and then there's a pretty steep fall off after that. So, like, my grouping of the best teams in the league is actually, the Nets. I was looking at this last night, and I think you have to put the Jazz in this conversation at 26-10. I think you do. So my 5 would be the Nets, the Jazz, the Bulls, the Suns, and the Warriors right here today. That's who
Warriors
I think.
won.
Yeah.
I think the Warriors won. I think the Suns are 2.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Bulls are 3.
Mm-hmm.
The Nets are 4.
Mm-hmm.
And then here's the question.
Mm-hmm.
Are the Memphis Grizzlies better than the Utah Jazz?
No. Not today.
Okay. I look at because there's only a couple of teams that are worthy of the 5th spot conversation.
Right.
And I do think the Jazz are on the cusp of that. But, man, I got to think if they played head-to-head 7-game series, I'm taking Memphis.
Man, you really like Memphis.
Memphis is playing incredibly fast. And I think what you're getting, I mean, I just watching them the other night. Like, I mean, they are, I don't know how you defend Memphis. I really don't. I mean, they're 20. Do people realize they've won 25 games?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that was without Ja Morant, right? But that win over the Nets the other night was a proving ground. Yeah. Having watched all of that, there's a couple of things that stood out to me in that game. First of all, they don't shoot the 3 particularly well.
Right.
They don't.
Yeah.
But they rebound the ball really well.
Yeah, they're a gritty team. They're tenacious.
And Steven Adams is hard to deal with. He's hard to deal with in the pick and roll.
Mm-hmm.
He's not a great impact player offensively. He just creates. He does what Rudy does. Rudy has such a wide frame.
Yeah.
He just creates a lot of room for guys.
Yeah.
So I really like the way they play. They don't. Again, they live and die on the 3. But the way that Bane is playing, that he scores 29 points on 5 of 11 from 3.
Yeah, dude.
That's pretty impressive to me.
Yeah.
And that they play their entire bench, and that Clark Jones and Culver are giving them big contribute. Like, that team's getting better.
Yeah. That
team is getting.
They are. There's no question they're better. Last year they were head and shoulders below the Jazz. I think this year it's close. Like, I think this year in a 7-game series, like I was saying earlier, I think it'd be very, very close. I think, again, assuming that both teams are 100%, I think that's a deep series. I think that's like a 6 or 7 gamer for sure.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they. I don't mind giving the Jazz that 5th spot.
Yeah, I think the Jazz have the 5th spot right now, here today. But I think I think the other thing that we got to mention before we move off the NBA stuff is that the Jazz deserve a lot of credit for A, staying healthy, but B, staying out of COVID protocol. They're one of the only teams that hasn't really had to deal with COVID this year. So, I think they deserve a lot of credit for that. So, assuming that can all stay, where it's at, there's not a huge COVID outbreak on the team. You don't sustain major injury, all that stays away. Yeah, I think the Jazz are the 5th team.
And by the way, I would also point out that Dylan Brooks is in COVID protocol, so they beat the Nets without him.
Yeah, it's a great point.
I mean,
they're a good team. I'm not disagreeing with you that Memphis is a good team. I just think that they need to prove and continue to prove that they can beat, the best teams.
Who's the worst team in the NBA right now? I'm going to say the Pistons. I've probably watched the Pistons are the Rockets.
Yeah.
I've watched way too. I think the Rockets are actually improving.
They are.
I think the Pistons are the worst team in the NBA, followed closely by the Pelicans.
Yeah.
So those two would be my bottom, and then I think the Magic
Yep.
was my third. This is where it gets difficult because I actually think Oklahoma City and Indiana are very similar teams, and I don't understand it.
Yeah, well, I think the surprise team that's down in the bottom of the league right now is Portland, and I think this Dame injury basically kicks them down into one of the worst teams in the league because without him, they're really not a good team.
They're awful defensively.
Yeah, I mean, without Dame, they're nothing.
I think only next to Houston.
Yeah,
the Rockets are the worst defensive team in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
I think Portland is second worst in defense, only to Houston.
Yeah. I mean, because after that, I mean, you got teams like ESPN has the Kings as the 23rd best team in the league, but they're not in the bottom, pot of teams. Like, I think your boiler pot of teams is Portland, New Orleans, OKC, Houston, Orlando, and Detroit. Those teams are like, hey, you guys are terrible.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.